The ancient records would later mark this moment as a turning point. Chu Feng stood before millions of cultivators, Imperial Armament in hand, having slain a rank 6 martial emperor, and declared that even the mighty ancient era's elves could not make him bow. Yet before the crowd could recover, suspicion over the Moonlight Maze gave way to a far greater danger, as the Dark Hall's killing formation finally began to awaken. With countless lives hanging in the balance, trust, courage, and brotherhood are about to be tested. A kettle has barely finished singing when a familiar troublemaker comes barging through the door, loudly claiming he is destined to become the next emperor, while everyone else rolls their eyes. Come in, fellow daoists. The tea is still warm. The old stories are still being argued over, and tonight's tale has enough Imperial armaments, shattered pride, and dangerous surprises to keep even the most seasoned wanderer awake. A dragon's roar tore across heaven and earth. The instant the furious coiling dragon beheader entered Chu Feng's grasp, silver radiance surged from the weapon, and an overwhelming emperor's might erupted from his body, like a tide breaking through a dam. The pressure that had been crushing Chu Feng vanished in an instant. Then the balance reversed. His aura surged forward, suppressing Xianxia's uncle instead.
What is that weapon? That emperor's might? Could it actually be another Imperial armament? Chu Feng possesses an Imperial armament as well.
Shock swept through the spectators. There was no mistaking that sensation. The weapon in Chu Feng's hand carried genuine Emperor's might, the unmistakable authority of an Imperial armament. Among those most shaken was Elder Yue Ling of the Heavenly Law Palace. He had cultivated for thousands of years, reached the level of a rank 6 martial emperor, and even become a management elder of one of the 3 palaces. Yet despite all of that, he had never obtained an Imperial armament of his own. Chu Feng, by contrast, had cultivated for only a little over a dozen years, yet such a treasure was already resting in his hand. For Yue Ling, this was more than surprise. It was a brutal comparison between age and achievement, one that struck directly at the pride of an expert who had spent millennia climbing the martial path. Envy and jealousy naturally followed.
My lord! Exclamation! Look carefully! Exclamation! That weapon. It resembles the legendary furious coiling dragon beheader.
Elder Yue Ling stared at the silver weapon, and his complexion nearly turned green. The shape, the aura, the overwhelming presence, everything matched the descriptions of that legendary armament. The name Furious Coiling Dragon Beheader was not obscure. It was an Imperial armament renowned throughout history, once wielded by the Beast Emperor, the Black Dragon King. That was precisely why disbelief spread so quickly. Since the death of the Beast Emperor, the Furious Coiling Dragon Beheader had never appeared again in the Holy Land of martialism. Now, without warning, a weapon matching that legend had surfaced in Chu Feng's hands. The doubt of the crowd was reasonable. An ordinary Imperial armament was already priceless. A famous Imperial armament tied to a legendary Beast Emperor carried not only power, but history, reputation, and an inheritance of prestige. Accepting its identity meant accepting that Chu Feng possessed a treasure far beyond what anyone had expected from him. Then the silver weapon roared again. A deep dragon cry rolled through the battlefield, and immediately afterward, the giant Imperial armament axe in Xianxia's uncle's hand began to tremble. It was not a slight vibration. The axe shook as though an instinct buried within the weapon itself had recognized something superior and feared it. Xianxia's uncle desperately tried to suppress the trembling before the true clash had even begun. Allowing his own weapon to recoil before Chu Feng's would already mean losing the battle of momentum. But he had only one hand remaining. He could not conceal it. Soon even the hand gripping the axe began trembling along with the weapon.
Look! Exclamation! His Imperial armament is shaking. It is afraid of Chu Feng's weapon. If an Imperial armament can suppress another Imperial armament like this, could that really be the Furious Coiling Dragon Beheader?
At this point, the weapon was proving its identity through dominance rather than appearance. Whatever doubts remained, the hierarchy between the two armaments had become painfully clear. Chu Feng had not merely drawn another Imperial armament, he had drawn one capable of intimidating its own kind. The attention of the entire battlefield shifted toward Chu Feng. To Xianxu's uncle, that change was unbearable.
Damn it! Exclamation, I refuse to believe this.
Fury exploded from him. He raised the enormous Imperial Armament axe and slashed with everything he had. The void split apart. A gigantic spatial crack opened along the path of the axe. The killing force contained within that strike caused even the great figures watching from afar to stiffen. Elder Huang Guan and the others felt the shadow of catastrophe descend over them. The attack was not aimed at Chu Feng alone. Its destructive range would annihilate everything within 10,000 meters around him. Xianxu's uncle was willing to bury every nearby spectator together with his enemy. That single choice exposed the difference between the two sides more clearly than any accusation could. Xianxu's uncle cared only about killing Chu Feng. The lives surrounding the battlefield had become expendable pieces in his rage. If Chu Feng failed to stop this strike, innocent people would pay the price for another man's hatred. Chu Feng moved.
Break.
The furious coiling dragon beheader swept through the air. Another colossal crack ripped across space as Chu Feng's attack charged directly into the incoming axe strike. Then the two Imperial armaments collided. An explosion swallowed the region, space shattered, the void collapsed, darkness engulfed every direction until the spectators could no longer see anything at all. For a brief moment, nobody knew whether they were still alive. Only after the broken space slowly repaired itself did light return. Figures emerged from the darkness one after another, unharmed. Not a single person on Chu Feng's side had been injured. He had blocked the catastrophic strike completely. Then a harsh cough cut through the silence. Everyone turned toward Xianxu's uncle and froze. The ancient era's elf had fallen to the ground. His body was terribly mangled, and every cough forced another mouthful of blood from him. The terrifying expert, who had moments earlier threatened everyone within 10,000 meters, now looked as though his life could disappear at any breath. Defeated. In a direct confrontation between Imperial armaments, Xianxu's uncle had lost to Chu Feng in a single exchange. The result carried enormous weight. This was not merely Chu Feng surviving an attack from a stronger enemy. He had met that enemy head-on, weapon against weapon, and crushed his offensive power in one bout. The furious coiling dragon beheader had transformed the entire power balance of the confrontation. Yet almost no one pitied the fallen elf. Only the people of the Heavenly Law Palace showed concern. His noble ancient era's elf bloodline could not erase what the crowd had just witnessed. During the battle, he had repeatedly launched ruthless attacks without caring whether the surrounding spectators lived or died. Had Chu Feng not stopped those attacks, countless innocents might already have become corpses. To many of those watching, sparing such a man no longer looked like mercy. It looked like leaving behind a future disaster. Status could command fear, but it could not manufacture sympathy after someone had openly treated other lives as disposable. Step by step, Chu Feng approached him with the furious coiling dragon beheader still in hand. Each footstep seemed louder than the last.
Before you die, is there anything else you want to say?
Xianxu's uncle stared up at him. Despite his shattered body, his voice immediately hardened.
Chu Feng, you cannot kill me. I am an ancient era's elf. Kill me, and you will be making an enemy of the entire ancient era's elf race. You may have been able to contend against the 4 great imperial clans, but do not mistake us for them. In the holy land of martialism, no one dares oppose the ancient era's elves, not even the 3 palaces. If you kill me, you will condemn yourself and everyone standing beside you.
Run to the furthest edge of this world if you wish. We will still find you, and we will still kill you.
Chu Feng paused, visibly startled. But it was not the power of the ancient era's elves that surprised him. What disappointed Chu Feng was something far simpler. This man had attacked with murderous fury only moments ago, willing to kill everyone nearby. Yet once death reached his own throat, he immediately hid behind his race and begged for survival through threats. To Chu Feng, the contradiction was almost contemptible. Ruthlessness toward others required no courage. True resolve was revealed only when the blade turned back toward oneself. Xianxu's uncle had demanded that others face death, yet he himself could not do the same. The surrounding crowd, however, misunderstood Chu Feng's silence. To them, his hesitation meant fear, and perhaps that conclusion was understandable. These were the ancient era's elves, a force whose name alone could make major powers reconsider their actions. The experts from the three palaces understood the threat especially well. Xianxu's uncle was not merely boasting about the strength of his race. The ancient era's elves truly possessed the power to make such threats terrifyingly credible. Meanwhile, several members of the Heavenly Law Palace secretly rejoiced. From their perspective, Chu Feng had stepped into a perfect trap. Kill the elf, and he might provoke the wrath of an overwhelmingly powerful race. Spare him, and the hatred already created would not simply disappear. To people who wanted Chu Feng dead, either road seemed to end in disaster. Believing Chu Feng had finally become afraid, Xianxu's uncle regained his confidence. His fear faded, and arrogance returned to his voice.
Chu Feng, kneel before me. Beg for forgiveness and apologize to my dead nephew. If you do that, I may consider sparing your life.
For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then Chu Feng laughed. His laughter grew louder and louder, carrying across the devastated battlefield until even Xianxu's uncle stared at him in confusion.
What are you laughing at?
The fallen elf could not understand it. If Chu Feng had truly been frightened by the ancient era's elves, why was there no panic in that laughter? Why was there no submission? And this was the moment the entire confrontation changed once more. The threat that Xianxu's uncle believed would restore his authority had instead revealed just how badly he misunderstood the young man standing over him. Chu Feng looked down at him, his laughter finally subsiding.
I'm laughing because you are truly ridiculous.
For a heartbeat, Xianxu's uncle could only stare at Chu Feng. The words he had just heard made no sense to him. Ridiculous? He had invoked the name of the ancient era's elves, one of the most terrifying powers in the Holy Land of martialism. In his mind, that name alone should have been enough to make any human hesitate. Then realization slowly dawned upon him. Perhaps Chu Feng simply did not understand how powerful the ancient era's elves truly were. Perhaps this young man's confidence came only from ignorance.
Chu Feng, do not underestimate the ancient era's elves. Our strength is far beyond anything you can imagine.
Chu Feng answered with another quiet laugh. There was no uncertainty in it, and certainly no fear. That reaction caused the confidence in Xianxu's uncle's heart to crack.
I know very well how powerful the ancient era's elves are, but there is something you clearly do not know.
What is it?
The tremor in his voice betrayed him. Chu Feng's calmness was no longer something he could dismiss. Instinct was warning him that the situation had already slipped beyond his control.
Representing Cyanwood Mountain, I have already formed an alliance with the ancient era's elves, and that alliance was personally proposed by His Majesty, the Elf King.
Shock crashed across Xianxu's uncle's face.
What did you say?
The others were no less stunned. Chu Feng had formed an alliance with the ancient era's elves, and the Elf King himself had initiated it. If that statement was true, its implications were enormous. Chu Feng was already strong enough to terrify countless experts on his own. With the ancient era's elves standing behind him, the number of powers in the Holy Land of martialism willing to openly oppose him would shrink dramatically. This was no longer merely a question of personal strength. Chu Feng was revealing political weight, and in the martial world, the force behind a blade could be just as frightening as the blade itself. Chu Feng was not finished.
Before entering the Moonlight Maze, I also met Lord Liukong of the Ancient Era's Elves. He already knows that I killed Xianxia, and he told me that if I encountered you again, I could act on behalf of the Ancient Era's Elves and kill you.
Those words were not a bluff. Before Chu Feng departed for the Moonlight Maze, Lord Luokong had personally addressed the matter of Xianxu's death. The Ancient Era's Elves would not pursue Chu Feng for it, and Chu Feng was told not to burden himself with the issue. More importantly, Lord Luokong had revealed that Xianxu's uncle was already considered a sinner by his own race. He had spent years fleeing the Ancient Era's Elves. His survival was not proof that they lacked the ability to capture him. It was simply because the Elf King had never made his elimination a priority. Had the Ancient Era's Elves truly decided to hunt him without restraint, how could a fugitive like him have remained beyond their reach for so long? The situation changed because of Chu Feng. The Elf King had personally told Lord Luokong that Chu Feng's importance exceeded the lives of members of their own race. Therefore, when Xianxu's uncle attempted to kill Chu Feng, Lord Luokong had no reason to continue tolerating him. As one of the 4 Grand Elders of the Ancient Era's Elves, Lord Luokong possessed the authority to make such a decision. Chu Feng had even asked him directly whether he could kill Xianxu's uncle if they crossed paths again. Lord Luokong's answer had been absolute.
Absolutely.
Thus, the killing intent in Chu Feng's eyes was genuine. He was not threatening Xianxu's uncle to force submission. He had already decided that this man would die. And there was another reason behind that decision. Chu Feng wanted everyone present to understand his boundary. Whoever tried to take his life would have to be prepared to lose their own, regardless of race, cultivation, or status.
What kind of joke is this? You are only a human! Exclamation. Why would the Ancient Era's Elves ever authorize you to kill me?
His tone remained stubborn, but inside, panic was spreading rapidly. He could feel the murderous intent pouring from Chu Feng. There was no hesitation in that gaze, no room for negotiation. He understood that Chu Feng truly intended to end his life. Worse still, he knew exactly how precarious his own position was. Though he carried the bloodline and appearance of an Ancient Era's elf, he was a wanted sinner who had fled his people for years. In practical terms, his status within the race had already been shattered. Yet even knowing that, he could not accept Chu Feng's claim. He remained an Ancient Era's elf. Even if his people captured and punished him, he did not believe his crimes warranted death. How, then, could an outsider, a human, be granted the authority to execute him? And there was Xianxu. Chu Feng had killed him before numerous witnesses. There was no ambiguity, no lack of evidence. Xianxu had not been an exile or a criminal. He had once been one of the most valued young talents of the Ancient Era's Elves. Before Xian Miao Miao rose to prominence, Xianxu had stood at the summit of the Ancient Era's Elves' younger generation. The 4 Grand Elders had even believed that his future accomplishments might one day approach those of the Elf King. He had been a talent the race intended to nurture with great care. That was precisely why Xianxu's uncle had once helped him deal with Zhang Qianyi and Zhang Qianyi's father. He had been investing in Xianxu's future. His hope was simple. Once Xianxu gained sufficient power and influence, he could help remove the pursuit order hanging over his uncle and restore his status among the Ancient Era's Elves. But Xianxu was dead, slain by Chu Feng. In his uncle's mind, the ancient era's elves should have wanted Chu Feng torn apart for such an offense. How could they possibly forgive him, much less empower him to execute another elf? That contradiction was the prison trapping Xian Yuyin's uncle's thoughts. He was judging the present through the value Xian Yuyin once possessed, without realizing that Chu Feng's value to the ancient era's elves had risen even higher. In a world ruled by strength and survival, yesterday's favored genius could become less important than today's indispensable ally. He refused to believe it. Even standing before death, he clung to that disbelief as though it were the final shield protecting his life.
Whether you believe me is irrelevant. I am still going to kill you.
The furious coiling dragon beheader moved. A silver arc tore through the air with terrifying speed. Blood burst outward as the blade cut directly through Xian Yuyin's uncle's dantian, destroying the foundation upon which his cultivation rested. Before anyone could recover, Chu Feng swung again. Another silver flash crossed the battlefield. A crimson arc followed it through the air. Then silence descended. Every person present froze. Even Wang Qiang, whose mouth was rarely still, stood with his jaw hanging open. Xian Yuyin's uncle was dead. Chu Feng had not merely taken the life of a rank 6 martial emperor. His second strike had cut the man apart through the middle. The shocking part was not only that Chu Feng could kill a rank 6 martial emperor, it was how decisively he did it. There was no prolonged confrontation, no attempt to bargain, and no fear of what might follow. Once Chu Feng judged the man to be an enemy who had to die, his decision became immediate action. When the crowd finally recovered from the initial shock, the way they looked at Chu Feng had completely changed. He had really killed an ancient era's elf, and not some ordinary one, but a rank 6 martial emperor. Had Chu Feng gone mad? Was he actually prepared to place himself against the ancient era's elves? The crowd reached that conclusion because, like the dead man himself, they did not truly believe Chu Feng's explanation. From their perspective, he had just created a disaster large enough to shake the holy land of martialism. Yet when they looked more carefully at Chu Feng, their unease deepened. His expression had barely changed. There was no regret, no panic, no sudden realization of having gone too far. To Chu Feng, killing Xian Yuyin's uncle seemed no different from completing something that had already been decided. And perhaps that composure frightened them more than the blood itself. A reckless man kills because he loses control. Chu Feng had done the opposite. He had remained completely in control from beginning to end. Wang Qiang finally approached him, still struggling to process what he had witnessed.
Chu Feng, aren't you being a little too daring? Was an ancient era's elf. Why you really just killed him? He wanted to kill me. Why shouldn't I kill him? Why yeah, he definitely deserved it. But he was still an ancient era's elf, and a rank 6 martial emperor too. His status should have been pretty high.
Chu Feng did not answer immediately. Instead, his gaze moved across the surrounding experts. Their faces told him everything. Most of them were thinking exactly what Wang Qiang had said, and some reacted even more strongly. There was an uncomfortable implication hidden in those expressions. If Xian Yuyin's uncle killed Chu Feng, perhaps that could somehow be accepted because he belonged to the ancient era's elves. But if Chu Feng killed him in return, then Chu Feng was somehow the one who had crossed an unforgivable line. That was exactly the kind of hierarchy Chu Feng refused to acknowledge. To him, an enemy's race and prestige did not erase the fact that the enemy had come for his life. His principle here was brutally simple. Status might intimidate others, but it would not purchase immunity from him.
Everyone, do you truly think I should not have killed him?
Silence answered him. No one wished to speak. The ancient era's elves were unquestionably dangerous to offend, but after what they had just witnessed, none of them were eager to provoke Chu Feng either. Then, amid that oppressive silence, Elder Yueling finally spoke. His voice carried unmistakable mockery.
You should not be asking us that question. You should be asking yourself.
With one sentence, Elder Yue Ling shifted the tension again. Chu Feng had demonstrated strength, resolve, and terrifying confidence, but whether that confidence rested upon truth or would ignite a greater conflict was still something the surrounding experts were not ready to believe. And after the death of a rank 6 martial emperor, there was no longer any path back to harmless words. A faint smile touched Chu Feng's face, but there was no warmth behind it. The pressure surrounding the battlefield had not vanished with Xian Yuyan's uncle's death. If anything, another confrontation was quietly beginning.
Ask myself.
Elder Yue Ling stepped forward with the bearing of a senior lecturing a junior. His words sounded restrained, yet their meaning was unmistakable.
Little friend Chu Feng, I will not say too much. I shall only offer you one piece of advice. When handling matters, one must understand their severity. When conducting oneself, one must know the limits of one's own ability.
Many elders of the Heavenly Law Palace nodded in approval. The others remained silent, but Chu Feng could read the atmosphere perfectly. Their mouths might have been closed, yet their hearts were speaking the same words. To those old experts, the problem was not whether Xian Yuyan's uncle deserved death. The problem was the power standing behind him. In their world, justice often became secondary when the opponent's background was terrifying enough. Chu Feng, however, had never lived according to that kind of calculation.
Although I, Chu Feng, belong to the younger generation, I am not a fish lying helplessly upon someone else's chopping block. I will not allow anyone to take advantage of me. Therefore, no matter who that person may be, as long as they try to kill me, I will never allow them to escape the consequences.
The instant those words fell, coldness erupted from Chu Feng like an invisible winter storm. The temperature across the region seemed to plunge by several degrees. His thunder armor still wrapped his body, while thunder wings blazed behind him. Lightning and killing intent intertwined, transforming ordinary coldness into something far more dreadful. Even Elder Yue Ling, a rank 6 martial emperor, frowned beneath that pressure. Only then did realization strike him like cold water. Xian Yuyan's uncle had also been a rank 6 martial emperor, yet he had still fallen before Chu Feng. That single fact overturned the entire balance of the conversation. Yue Ling had approached Chu Feng as a senior, speaking down to a junior. But strength was the true currency of the martial world, and Chu Feng had already proven that cultivation age and social seniority could not protect someone from his blade. Cold sweat began to appear across the crowd. Moments earlier, everyone had been thinking about the terrifying backing of Xian Yuyan's uncle. In doing so, they had nearly forgotten the equally terrifying person standing directly before them. Chu Feng was no ordinary genius of the younger generation. He was a young man capable of killing a rank 6 martial emperor. After sensing that frightening aura, even Elder Yue Ling no longer dared to continue admonishing him. Chu Feng's gaze slowly swept across the gathered experts.
Actually, I understand why all of you believe I should not have killed Xian Yuyan's uncle. The reason is simple. You believe the ancient era's elves are not an existence that should be provoked. But if that is truly what you think, then from the depths of your hearts, you must also believe everything I said earlier was false, that the ancient era's elves are my allies, and that Lord Liukong personally told me I could kill Xian Yuyan's uncle. In other words, all of you believe that I, Chu Feng, was lying.
His eyes passed over the crowd, one person at a time. Yet this time, not a single person dared to meet them. They had indeed doubted him, but admitting that doubt directly before Chu Feng was an entirely different matter.
Facts speak louder than words. Whether I, Chu Feng, was lying or not, everyone will know in the future.
The simplicity of his answer shook them more deeply than another threat would have. There was no nervous explanation, no desperate attempt to convince anyone, only absolute confidence. And that confidence planted a dangerous possibility in every mind present. What if Chu Feng had truly told the truth? What if the ancient era's elves genuinely regarded him as an ally, and Lord Luokong had truly granted him permission to kill one of their own? If so, Chu Feng's position was far more terrifying than they had imagined. Fear remained in their eyes, but something new appeared beside it. Even old monsters whose lifespans were approaching their end now looked at Chu Feng differently. He had forced them to reassess him completely. With the matter settled, Chu Feng stopped paying attention to the crowd. He moved to Xianxu's uncle's remains and collected the fallen expert's Cosmos sack and Imperial Armament. Those treasures belonged to an ancient era's elf. Even if Chu Feng had no intention of keeping them, he could not simply abandon them. He intended to return them to the ancient era's elves. He also stored away Xianxu's uncle's corpse. Regardless of the conflict between them, the dead man remained an ancient era's elf, and Chu Feng intended to let his people decide what should be done with his remains. Of course, if the ancient era's elves ultimately allowed Chu Feng to dispose of the corpse himself, that would bring another benefit. Xianxu's uncle had been a rank 6 martial emperor. The source energy contained within such a powerful body was naturally extraordinary. Once Eggy awakened, Chu Feng could allow her to refine it. This was Chu Feng's practicality at work. Hatred had decided the battle, but once the battle ended, he immediately considered responsibility, consequences, and resources. In the cultivation world, the body of a fallen expert could possess tremendous value, and wasting such an opportunity would accomplish nothing. At that moment, Elder Huang Guan of the Underworld Palace approached. Perhaps he wished to break the suffocating tension, but the curiosity in his eyes was equally genuine. His attention had fallen upon the Imperial Armament in Chu Feng's hand.
Little friend, Chu Feng, that Imperial Armament in your hand, could it be the legendary Furious Coiling Dragon Beheader?
Chu Feng gave a straightforward nod.
Senior, truthfully speaking, this is indeed the Imperial Armament used by Senior Beast Emperor during his lifetime, the Furious Coiling Dragon Beheader.
Expressions changed throughout the crowd. Even Elder Huang Guan sharply inhaled. The weapon's identity was simply too astonishing.
Little friend, Chu Feng, could it be that you are the Beast Emperor's successor?
I am not the Beast Emperor's successor. I merely happen to obtain the Furious Coiling Dragon Beheader.
Those words nearly made Yueling choke on his own envy. Chu Feng had obtained the Beast Emperor's legendary Imperial Armament, yet still denied being his successor. Worse still, he had described the event with the word merely. For Yueling, who did not even possess an ordinary Imperial Armament, those casual words were almost unbearable. One man desperately desired even a common Imperial Armament. Another had obtained the Beast Emperor's weapon and spoke of it almost casually. Sometimes the difference between people was not merely cultivation, it was fortune itself.
Little friend, Chu Feng, your talent is exceptional, and your fortune is equally astonishing. In my opinion, the next overlord of the Holy Land of Martialism will most certainly be you.
Before the praise could fully settle, another voice cut into the conversation, with familiar confidence and an equally familiar stutter.
Die, that's not foe, for certain.
Wang Chang raised his head with complete confidence.
Although Chu Feng is my good brother, boo, but this ear is overlord will be me, Wang Qiang.
The solemn atmosphere shattered. Hisses erupted from every direction, followed by mocking laughter. Some openly called Wang Chang shameless.
You bunch are truly people who possess dog eyes and can't judge. No matter what, I am still Emperor Kai suck, successor.
Who are you trying to deceive?
No one believed him. Wang Chang could only sigh dramatically before borrowing the very words Chu Feng had used moments earlier.
Fact speaks loud, louder than words. WH, whether or not when King's lying, you all will know later on.
The sentence was almost identical to Chu Feng's declaration, yet the effect could not have been more different. When Chu Feng had spoken those words, overwhelming confidence and domineering power had made seasoned experts lower their eyes. When Wang Chang repeated them, the entire crowd burst into roaring laughter. The contrast was almost absurd. Chu Feng could turn a simple statement into a declaration of dominance. Wang Chang could take the same statement and turn it into comedy. Shameless as he might be, his presence had completely broken the suffocating tension. Then, without warning, the earth-shaking sound of stone and mechanism thundered across the region. Rumble. The enormous gate through which everyone had entered suddenly began to close. Laughter died instantly. The crowd stared toward the sealed entrance in confusion. They had no idea what was happening. Chu Feng, however, immediately frowned. The gate had remained open from the moment they entered. Because of that, people had continued pouring into this region without interruption. There were no longer merely several million people gathered here. The number had already surpassed 10 million. That was precisely why the closing gate was so alarming. Its previous behavior suggested that remaining open was part of this place's normal operation. For it to suddenly seal now meant that some outside force, or someone with control over the mechanism, had interfered. A possibility immediately surfaced in Chu Feng's mind. The Dark Hall. Before anyone else understood the danger, one person in the crowd pointed at Wang Chang, still treating the event as another joke.
Look! You kept boasting so shamelessly that even the door shut itself.
Another wave of laughter erupted. But Chu Feng's expression did not loosen. His voice suddenly rang out over the immense gathering, sharp enough to cut through every laugh.
Everyone, now is not the time to laugh. It is very likely that a crisis is about to descend upon this place.
The crowd fell tense immediately. Chu Feng had spoken loudly, but more importantly, there had been no trace of humor in his tone. The seriousness on his face made even those who knew nothing of the situation instinctively uneasy. Only moments earlier, more than 10 million people had been laughing together. Now the same closed gate transformed that gathering into something ominously similar to a sealed cage. If Chu Feng's suspicion was correct, then the danger ahead would not concern one sect or one expert. It could engulf everyone present. The experts exchanged confused glances. A crisis? Why would disaster suddenly descend upon them here? Elder Huang Guan finally stepped forward and asked the question occupying everyone's mind.
Little friend, Chu Feng, what exactly do you mean?
Chu Feng looked across the enormous gathering. The joking atmosphere was gone. Countless eyes were now fixed upon him, waiting for an explanation. And with that sealed gate looming behind them, Chu Feng was about to reveal a name capable of turning uncertainty into true fear.
Before I explain, let me ask all of you something first. Has everyone here heard of the Dark Hall?
The revelation of the Dark Hall moved through the gathered cultivators like a cold wind sweeping across a battlefield.
Dark Hall, have heard of them before. It's that mysterious power that appeared in the Xiamen Imperial clan before. Right.
Voices rose one after another. Although the Dark Hall had always operated from the shadows, the incident involving the Xiamen Imperial clan had already exposed its name to the wider world. Among the countless experts gathered in the Moonlight Maze, almost no one was completely ignorant of that mysterious organization. Chu Feng swept his gaze across the enormous crowd. There was no time for unnecessary explanation. Every breath they wasted might become one breath too many.
This matter is extremely important, so I will make a long story short. It is possible that the maps of the Moonlight Maze in your possession were deliberately spread by the Dark Hall. Their purpose in spreading those maps was to lure everyone.
The atmosphere tightened. What had appeared to be a fortunate gathering of treasure seekers was suddenly being painted in a far darker light.
And their objective is very clear. They want everyone here to die.
An uproar exploded through the crowd. Some cultivators visibly panicked. Others narrowed their eyes in suspicion. Yet regardless of whether they believed Chu Feng, no one could casually dismiss what he had just said. For cultivators accustomed to gambling their lives for treasures, danger itself was nothing unusual. But there was a profound difference between risking death for fortune and discovering that the entire expedition might have been designed as a grave from the beginning.
For real.
Death had always been the sharpest blade hanging above a cultivator's head, and when that blade threatened millions of people at once, even the proudest experts could not remain indifferent.
I am not lying to you. There is a killing formation in this place, and it could activate at any moment. Once that killing formation activates, every one of us here will die.
Elder Huang Guan's expression became grave. He did not immediately question Chu Feng's intentions. Instead, he sought the most important thing, the source of this terrifying information.
Little friend, Chu Feng, how did you come to know of this?
Chu Feng knew that vague warnings would no longer be enough. If he wanted these people to abandon the immortality peach tree and leave, he needed something stronger than words.
Since matters have already reached this point, I might as well tell everyone the truth. The ancient era's elves already knew about this matter. I was entrusted by them to enter this place and help everyone survive this crisis. That is also why I chose the seventh path. Even without relying on the map, I am able to open its gate.
Before millions of watching eyes, Chu Feng produced an enormous world spirit key and inserted it into the gate of the seventh path. A crisp snap echoed out. The sealed gate opened.
It actually opened.
Disbelief appeared across countless faces. Until that instant, Chu Feng's warning had merely been an alarming claim. But now he had produced something that looked like proof. After all, Chu Feng truly had insisted on entering the seventh path earlier, and now he had demonstrated that he could open its gate. Yet there was one detail the crowd did not know. The enormous key could open the gate because Chu Feng had concealed his map inside it. In other words, the true source of the key's power was still the map. Chu Feng's deception was not intended to seize treasure. It was a calculated attempt to create credibility. With more than 10 million lives at stake, simply telling the truth was useless if no one believed him. He needed a convincing reason for the crowd to follow him. There was another reason he had deliberately opened the seventh path now. According to what Chu Feng understood, the killing formation could only operate within this particular region. If he could lead everyone beyond this place, the killing formation would lose its ability to threaten them. Earlier, Chu Feng had not known how he would escape this region himself, but now that the seventh path's gate could be opened whenever necessary, a straightforward solution had appeared before him. It was the closest thing to a guaranteed rescue plan Chu Feng possessed. Forget the formation, forget confronting the Dark Hall directly, and simply remove every intended victim from the formation's reach. Elder Huang Guan immediately understood the urgency.
Little friend, Chu Feng would not deceive us. There is no time to lose. Everyone, quickly leave this place.
Wang Qiang needed no further persuasion. The danger concerned his own life, and he reacted faster than nearly anyone.
Let me go first.
He rushed through the seventh path's gate without hesitation. That single movement broke the crowd's hesitation. One group after another surged toward the opened passage. Whatever treasures remained behind, none of them wished to become corpses guarding those treasures forever. For a fleeting moment, Chu Feng's plan seemed to be working. Then a thunderous voice cut across the movement of millions.
Everyone, wait a moment.
It was Elder Yue Ling. His voice carried enough force to halt the fleeing cultivators and drag their attention back toward him.
Everyone, I urge you to calm yourselves. Do not allow yourselves to be deceived by Chu Feng.
Those already inside the seventh path froze. Those who had not yet crossed the gate stopped where they stood.
Elder Yu Ling, WH, what are you talking about?
Elder Yue Ling did not attack Chu Feng's strength. He attacked something far more dangerous, his credibility. In a gathering this enormous, suspicion could spread faster than killing intent. Yue Ling did not need to prove Chu Feng was lying. He only needed to make millions of people wonder whether Chu Feng might be lying.
Everyone, do you not find this extremely suspicious? If this place is truly so dangerous, why did Chu Feng not warn us before we entered? Why did he wait until now to say anything?
The question struck precisely where Yue Ling intended.
That's right. Little friend Chu Feng, why didn't you warn us sooner?
Chu Feng's eyes flickered slightly. Yet instead of showing panic, the corner of his mouth rose into a faint smile. He did not answer immediately. He simply looked at Elder Yue Ling. Yue Ling took that silence as an opportunity and pressed forward.
Furthermore, Chu Feng was the first person to reach this place. That proves he already knew how to get here. If he knew how to reach this place beforehand, then he must also have known that the immortality peach tree was here. And if he knew about the immortality peach tree, then it is entirely possible that he knew the other secrets hidden here as well.
Then came the accusation Yue Ling had been building toward.
Chu Feng insists that everyone leave because he wishes to deceive us. Once we are gone, he can monopolize all the treasures in this place for himself.
The crowd did not openly agree with him, but actions often revealed what mouths refused to admit. Other than Wang Qiang and the people from the underworld palace, many cultivators who had already entered the seventh path slowly walked back out. One after another, they returned to the area containing the immortality peach tree. That retreat exposed the true weakness in Chu Feng's plan. The greatest obstacle was no longer the killing formation. It was greed mixed with distrust. The immortality peach tree stood before their eyes, while the threat Chu Feng described remained invisible. For many people, the treasure felt real, and the danger still felt hypothetical. Elder Yue Ling's expression finally carried undisguised satisfaction. Since the beginning, the crowd had repeatedly sided with Chu Feng. Now, at last, he had managed to pull their hearts in the opposite direction.
Chu Feng, you have nothing to say now, do you?
Chu Feng remained calm.
Nothing to say, would I have nothing to say?
Rather than argue emotionally, Chu Feng began dismantling Yue Ling's accusation with a simple question.
Firstly, when all of you were entering this place, I had no way to prove what I knew. If I had told you at that time that there was a killing formation here and warned all of you not to enter, who among you would have believed me? Ask yourselves honestly, if there is anyone here who truly would have believed me back then, raise your hand.
Across the sea of more than 10 million people, hands slowly rose. But there were only about 1,000. Compared to the enormous crowd, that number was almost negligible. Those who kept their hands lowered remained silent, because deep within their hearts they already knew the answer. Had Chu Feng warned them before they entered, they would not have believed him. Even Elder Yue Ling had not raised his hand. Chu Feng gave a faint scoff.
At that time, none of you trusted me. Then if I had asked all of you to follow me into the seventh path, you would actually have done so.
The 1,000 or so people who had raised their hands began lowering them. Soon not a single hand remained in the air. The reason was simple. From the entrance alone, everyone had sensed how terrifying the seventh path was. To them, Stepping inside had appeared no different from willingly walking toward death. Chu Feng had forced the crowd to confront its own past judgment. Yue Ling's accusation depended on the assumption that Chu Feng could have warned everyone earlier. But if no one would have listened, then warning them earlier would have accomplished nothing.
Then let me ask you this. How was I supposed to convince everyone to leave at that time? Since I already knew that I could not successfully persuade everyone, why would I waste that opportunity? Why would I not wait until I could prove myself to you first?
Silence answered him. The crowd could not refute Chu Feng because his reasoning matched their own behavior. Those cultivators who had entered the seventh path and then returned under Yue Ling's influence now wore expressions of embarrassment and self-reproach. At this point, Chu Feng had won the argument. But winning an argument and convincing millions of cultivators to abandon priceless treasures were two entirely different victories. Chu Feng looked over everyone once more.
Then, are you willing to follow me out of this place now?
A visible change swept through the crowd. Many people who had doubted him moments earlier began seriously considering departure. But Elder Yue Ling had not surrendered. He needed only a few words to awaken the desire that had brought those millions of cultivators into the Moonlight Maze in the first place.
Everyone, you must think carefully. The Moonlight Maze is a place filled with countless treasures.
That single reminder struck harder than another accusation ever could. The cultivators who had been preparing to leave hesitated again. This was Yue Ling's most effective weapon. He no longer needed to prove Chu Feng wrong. He merely had to remind everyone what they might lose by believing him. Fear urged them toward the seventh path, but greed chained their feet to the Moonlight Maze. In the end, only a little more than 10,000 people stepped forward and chose to leave with Chu Feng. 10,000 cultivators would ordinarily have been an astonishing number. But compared with the more than 10 million people still gathered there, they were almost nothing. Chu Feng had found what appeared to be the safest possible solution: open the seventh path and move everyone beyond the killing formation's reach. Yet the plan was collapsing, not because the gate was sealed, not because the Dark Hall had attacked, but because the people he wished to save refused to leave. And that made the danger far more terrifying. A formation could be broken, an enemy could be fought, and a sealed gate could be opened. But when millions willingly remained beside the very trap meant to kill them, Chu Feng's surefire rescue plan seemed destined to fail. The seventh path stood behind Chu Feng, like the mouth of some ancient abyss, its aura so dangerous that even seasoned martial emperors could feel unease crawling through their bones. Yet Chu Feng faced those who had chosen to trust him without the slightest hesitation.
Very well. Since all of you have chosen to believe in me, I will guarantee your safety.
Then Chu Feng turned toward Elder Huang Guan and Wang Qiang. His decision had already been made.
Elder Huang Guan, Brother Wang Qiang, please escort them out of the Moonlight Maze. Simply return along the path we used to enter. Although this seventh path releases an extremely dangerous aura, it is actually safe.
Elder Huang Guan's brows tightened. The meaning behind Chu Feng's words was obvious. Chu Feng intended to remain behind.
Little friend, Chu Feng, are you not leaving with us?
They may not believe me, but I cannot simply stand aside and watch them die.
But if the killing formation you spoke of truly exists, remaining here may accomplish nothing.
I still have another method. I cannot promise that it will succeed, but I have to try.
That answer revealed the difference between confidence and arrogance. Chu Feng did not claim absolute control over the danger. He openly admitted that his method might fail. Yet because millions of lives were still before him, uncertainty was not enough to make him walk away. Wang Qiang, however, had no patience for the people who had rejected Chu Feng's warning. He deliberately raised his voice so that everyone nearby could hear.
Chu Feng, they do not believe you. There is no cure for their foolishness. If they die, that is what they deserve. You should just let them die. Why bother saving them?
Those who had refused to leave immediately wore ugly expressions. They knew Chu Feng had warned them out of goodwill. They knew remaining behind meant rejecting that goodwill. Yet the possibility of treasure still chained their feet to the ground. They were not staying because they had proven Chu Feng wrong. They were staying because greed had made uncertainty easier to accept than returning empty-handed. In the martial world, that single weakness had buried countless experts before them.
It does not matter if they believe me, but I cannot abandon them. This is my responsibility.
Chu Feng even smiled as he said it. There was no anger in his face, no resentment toward those who doubted him. It was almost as though he had expected this outcome from the beginning. And precisely because Chu Feng did not condemn them, the shame in the crowd grew heavier. But Elder Yue Ling refused to let that sentiment spread. Seeing the crowd's hearts beginning to tilt toward Chu Feng, he immediately struck at the weakest point, their suspicion.
Responsibility what? A joke. I exposed you, so now you are forced to remain behind. The truth is that you still cannot bear to leave the treasures in this place. Everyone, do not allow Chu Feng to deceive you.
Zzzt. Before Elder Yue Ling's final words had even faded, lightning tore across the space. Chu Feng vanished. In the next instant, he was already standing before Elder Yue Ling. Thunder armor covered his body. Thunder wings spread behind him. Brilliant arcs of lightning crawled across Chu Feng like furious dragons, while an oppressive might far beyond what Elder Yue Ling could withstand came crashing down. Elder Yue Ling's face changed instantly. Driven backward again and again by that pressure, he sensed something even more terrifying hidden within it. Killing intent. In panic, Elder Yue Ling flipped his palm and summoned an incomplete Imperial Armament. Rather than wait for Chu Feng to attack, he desperately seized the initiative and struck first. A silver flash crossed the air. Clang! The furious coiling dragon beheader descended. Elder Yue Ling's incomplete Imperial Armament did not merely lose the clash, it was hacked cleanly into two pieces. The broken fragments spun wildly through the air before crashing onto the ground. Elder Yue Ling froze. His face became deathly pale. Cold sweat poured down his aged features as he stood there like a man whose soul had been struck from his body. That single exchange had answered a question no argument could settle. Elder Yue Ling finally understood the true difference between his strength and Chu Feng's. Had Chu Feng aimed that blade at his body rather than his weapon, there would have been no second move. The experts of the Heavenly Law Palace reacted at once. Weapons flashed into their hands as they surrounded Chu Feng with tense faces.
Impudent exclamation, how dare you behave so rudely toward Lord Elder exclamation. Do you intend to oppose our Heavenly Law Palace?
Chu Feng slowly swept his gaze across them.
And what if I am?
That was all. No roaring, no boasting, no elaborate threat. Yet the men who had been ready to fight began retreating. Some trembled. Sweat ran down their faces. A few were so overwhelmed by Chu Feng's killing intent that their legs failed them, and they collapsed onto the ground. Numbers only matter when numbers can close the gap in strength. Here, they could not. Their strongest elder had lost in one exchange. Charging together would not become bravery simply because more people joined the charge. It would only become a larger pile of corpses. Elder Yue Ling understood that as well. Unable to defeat Chu Feng with strength, he desperately reached for the authority behind his name.
Chu Feng, if you kill me, you will only prove that you have a guilty conscience exclamation, even if I die. The Heavenly Law Palace will never let you escape.
Chu Feng's expression did not change. The furious coiling dragon beheader moved closer.
Did you really think I would not dare to kill you?
You.
Elder Yue Ling could barely form a complete sentence. His robes were soaked with sweat. Behind all his accusations and threats, one truth could no longer be hidden. He was terrified of dying.
If I wanted your life, one slash would be enough. But I will not kill you. Killing you would only dirty my hands. As for which of us has spoken the truth and which has lied, time will reveal everything. My conscience is clear. I am not afraid to wait.
Chu Feng withdrew the furious coiling dragon beheader and walked toward the immortality peach tree. There, beneath the ancient tree, he sat cross-legged and calmly closed his eyes. By refusing to kill Elder Yue Ling, Chu Feng did something more damaging than defeating him. He left the Elder alive to face the coming truth. If the killing formation appeared, Yue Ling's own accusations would become the weapon that destroyed his reputation. Meanwhile, Elder Yue Ling gasped heavily and wiped the cold sweat from his face again and again. His legs felt weak. In his mind, he had just walked to the gates of death and somehow been permitted to return. Then came a soft sound beside Chu Feng. Someone had dropped down and taken a seat next to him. Chu Feng opened his eyes. Wang Chang was sitting there, grinning at him so widely that every tooth seemed to be on display. A wave of truly unpleasant breath immediately struck Chu Feng in the face.
Why did you come back? Yo, you're not going. So I'm not going either. After all, we're brothers.
Chu Feng smiled. He said nothing. There was nothing that needed to be said. For Chu Feng, the word brother was never merely a title spoken over wine when the road was peaceful. A brother was the person who saw danger ahead, knew there might be no path back, and sat beside you anyway. And in that simple choice, Wang Chang gave the chapter its true meaning. Loyalty becomes valuable only when staying costs something. Another voice soon sounded nearby.
Little friend, Chu Feng, since you refuse to leave, this old man will remain as well.
Elder Huangguan had returned. Behind him came the other people of the underworld palace. Without hesitation, they settled around Chu Feng. Then more footsteps returned through the seventh path. One after another, everyone who had previously left came back. And every person who returned chose to sit beside Chu Feng. Soon afterward, the gate of the seventh path closed. The enormous gathering was now divided into two unmistakable camps. On one side were those who believed Chu Feng. On the other were those who did not. The division was silent, yet sharper than any blade. Those who had doubted Chu Feng could barely raise their heads. Their shame and unease only deepened. Elder Huangguan finally found their awkward behavior too difficult to watch without saying something.
Everyone, if you truly believe treasures are hidden here, please feel free to search carefully. There is no need to stand around, acting so restrained.
The smile on his face made the mockery unmistakable. Then a white-haired old man stepped forward with a solemn expression. His face was crossed with scars. A gigantic blade wrapped in cloth rested across his back, radiating the weight of countless battles.
Little friend Chu Feng, if your warning proves true, then before this old man dies, I will kneel before you and admit my mistake.
This was no ordinary elder. The weapon on his back was the snow blade, an incomplete Imperial armament he had mastered to a terrifying degree. The man himself was known throughout the martial world as the Snow Blade Mad Demon. He was a rank 6 martial emperor, an old monster whose reputation surpassed even Elder Yue Ling and Elder Huangguan. But even such a renowned expert stood near the end of his lifespan. For a man of that prestige to promise that he would kneel was no small matter. His words showed that Chu Feng's composure and his willingness to remain behind had already begun to shake even the convictions of the oldest experts present. After the Snowblade Mad Demon spoke, others followed. At first, only ancient experts and old monsters voiced their apologies. Then the tide spread. Before long, nearly half of the more than 10 million people present had expressed regret for doubting Chu Feng. Elder Huang Guan then turned his attention toward the one man who had pushed the accusations further than anyone else.
Elder Yu Ling, since you distrusted little friend Chu Feng more than anyone, should you not offer an apology of your own?
Elder Yue Ling's expression stiffened.
Fine. If I have truly accused little friend Chu Feng wrongly, I will certainly compensate him.
The words came reluctantly, but everyone understood what they represented. Elder Yue Ling was yielding. He had little choice. Chu Feng's previous strike had carved the difference in strength into his heart, and fear had done what reason could not. Chu Feng suddenly chuckled.
Ahoy.
Elder Yue Ling immediately wiped another layer of cold sweat from his forehead.
Little friend Chu Feng, what are you laughing at?
Compensate me with what?
Chu Feng raised the furious coiling dragon beheader.
Can you produce anything more precious than this?
I.
Elder Yue Ling had no answer. Wang Chang suddenly cut in from the side.
If you have WR, wrongly accused Chu Feng, TH, then you should apologize what? With your life.
What?
The elder's heart lurched. His expression changed instantly.
Yo, you don't dare. Then doesn't that mean you have a guilty conscience? You've practically admitted that you falsely accused Chu Feng.
Silence descended. Then more than 10 million gazes turned toward Elder Yue Ling. Many of those gazes were colder than winter steel. The situation had completely reversed. Moments ago, Elder Yue Ling had used the crowd's suspicion as a weapon against Chu Feng. Now that same crowd had become the blade hanging over Yue Ling's own neck. The shame many people felt toward Chu Feng had been stirred largely by Elder Yue Ling's accusations. If those accusations proved false, their humiliation would need a target. And that target was now standing before them. Elder Yue Ling felt every hair on his body rise. Even without Chu Feng lifting a finger, the pressure from millions of people was enough to make his heart tremble. With nowhere left to retreat, he forced the words from his throat.
If what little friend Chu Feng said is true, then I will take my own life here and now. I will use my death to return his innocence.
Rumble! The instant Elder Yue Ling finished speaking, the entire region began to shake. Violent tremors surged through the ground. The surrounding walls suddenly erupted with crimson radiance. One scarlet ray crossed another, then another, and another. Within moments, the crimson light interlocked above and around them, forming an enormous net that seemed to seal heaven and earth. Every face changed, every face except Chu Feng's. Because from that vast crimson net came something no martial emperor present could mistake. Fatal killing intent. The killing formation Chu Feng had warned them about had awakened. And now, with the seventh path already closed, more than 10 million people were about to learn whether distrust had merely wounded their pride or sentenced them to death.